Good afternoon and welcome to today's Digital Dealer webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by MarketScan and is titled Coronavirus Causes Disruption and Accelerates Need for Automotive Digital Retailing Proficiency. Today's webinar presenter is Rusty West, co-founder and president of MarketScan. This webinar will run approximately 1 hour with a question and answer session at the end. Please welcome Rusty.
Thank you very much, Farah. Hello, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is Rusty West, and I'm the president and co-founder of MarketScan Information Systems. Before we get started, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our friends at Digital Dealer and Dealer Magazine for inviting us to conduct this webinar. They are both great partners of ours, and we're proud to work with them. During these unprecedented times, our concern is for our families, our team members, our clients, and our communities. Our thoughts and prayers go out to each and every one of you. As all of us navigate through this maze of uncertainty, we're constantly reminded of the importance of both personal and business families and communities, and we are all striving to find ways to improve and enrich our lives. I can only imagine all the many things that each one of you have on your respective plates, and I genuinely appreciate your carving out an hour to spend with me today. You know, we've been around for a long time, and the car business has been very good to us. Like many other members of the automotive community, we're trying to give back to our beloved industry, kind of pay it forward, if you will. And we hope this webinar accomplishes some of that. So this is the first time me hosting a webinar like this, and my goal is for everyone to enjoy it. And most importantly, my goal is for everyone to learn something that will help you thrive in today's unusual business environment. Now, MarketScan, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here hitting the space bar and none of my stuff is going through on the screen. Let's see here. So MarketScan was founded in 1988, and even though we've been around for over 3 decades, we behave like a startup business by continually pushing the technology envelope. I suspect several of you are Simon Sinek fans. I'm for sure a big one. And one of his most popular symposiums is entitled Start with Why. He suggests we define why we do what we do, followed by how it is that we do what we do, and then what exactly it is that we actually do. He's currently running a free online book club. You may wish to join. The information's up on the screen. It's actually a pretty cool deal. Each week he goes through a different section of the book. He's got live question and answer sessions that he's doing through YouTube. It's kind of similar to this. So I'd like to share with you MarketScan's why, how, and what. MarketScan lives to evolve automotive commerce by combining science, technology, and data to transform the industry. That is our why. And how do we achieve our why? We employ agile development techniques to electronically aggregate manufacturer, lender, municipality, and dealership data, and we harness the power of cloud computing to calculate hundreds of millions of penny-certain payments every day. What is it that we actually do? We provide scientifically perfect solutions for any conceivable automotive transaction. Now, since our inception, we've operated under the premise that there is only one scientifically perfect solution for any automotive transaction. And any solution that's less than perfect has a negative impact on 4 different sectors of the market. And that's the consumer, the dealer, the lender, and the manufacturer. And from the consumer's perspective, any solution that's less than perfect has one of 3 results. And that's the consumer's either paying too much a month for what they're driving a lesser vehicle than what they could afford, or they simply pass on the transaction because it doesn't fit their budget. For the dealer, any solution that is less than perfect invariably results in lost revenues or overlooked opportunities. Now, as far as the lenders and the manufacturers are concerned, they're either paying too much for the market share they are gaining, or they're losing segments of the market they otherwise would win if they were making scientifically perfect decisions. So we should have a polling question coming up. I think Farah runs that for us. Can you do that for me, Farah, please? And I ask that just the dealers on the call answer those questions. And, so while you guys are answering those, I'm going to go on a little bit further. We're going to get back to the results of the polling questions as we go through the rest of the presentation. So we talked about calculating scientifically perfect solutions for any conceivable transaction. And in order to do that, we have to take 5 classes of data into consideration. and that's the consumer, the manufacturer, the lender, the municipality, and the dealer. And the consumer's a wild card. You know, every shopper's kind of got their own appetite for a particular vehicle, their own credit profile, their budget, driving habits, etc. And the manufacturer class, if we look at the manufacturer class of data and all the other classes, the manufacturer, the lender, the municipality, and even the dealer, each one of those classes of data has predefined information at any given point in time, and they change constantly. But you know, right now, on this time on Thursday, in any particular market, all of the information is static for this moment in time. So if we look at the manufacturer class of data, it consists of two buckets: basic data and complex data. I'm going to rattle off the basic data because I say them a lot, and some people chuckle when I do, but it's year, make, model, trim, description, cost, MSRP, shipping, gas codes, EPA mileage, engine bore, stroke, number of cylinders. Some of those things that I threw in there seem like, why in the world would he be saying that? But some of those elements are necessary in order to calculate certain elements, maybe registration fees or residual values or whatever. But there's also a really big, complex section of the manufacturer class of data, and that's all the rebates and incentives. And those are also broken up into two segments as well. There's automatic rebates and there's conditional rebates. And the automatic rebates apply to every consumer, but they vary based on the type of transaction. And there's two main types of transactions. There's lease transactions and there's retail transactions. Retail transactions can be defined as a finance contract, a balloon note contract, or a cash purchase contract, and then lease, obviously, lease. But in each one of the two categories, lease or retail, there's a bunch of subcategories. It could be a captive lender special program, a captive lender standard program, an affiliated lender special or standard, or maybe just a non-affiliated, or even just a cash purchase option. Each one of those subcategories may have different rebates that apply to all consumers, and they also might have different conditional rebates. The four most common conditional rebates that we deal with in the automotive space are college grad, military repeat customer loyalty, or Encore, however they want to call it, and then also the conquest. You know, if I've got a guy in an F-150 truck and I want to put him in a C-1500 truck, gee, I might throw some money at him. But there's literally billions of dollars of other conditional rebates that are out there just literally waiting to be plucked, and they oftentimes go unutilized. A lot of times because they're very complex, and they're very much like coupons for the grocery store in that they can't always be combined with other offers. That combination is referred to very often as stackability. So we need to be able to know which items can be stacked in order to make sure that the rebates and incentives that our customers qualify for, they actually can get. We don't want to quote things that we can't get. The next class of data that we have to take into consideration in order to calculate a scientifically perfect solution is the lender class. And it is a much, much larger and much more complicated class than the manufacturer class, which is very, very large and very complex. And from the lender class of data, again, it falls into two segments as well. And there's what we call soft numbers and hard numbers. And the soft numbers are all of the buying policies and practices as they relate to credit. So we need to be able to take information from a consumer, and it can be as basic as a credit score. It could be as comprehensive as even a combined 3 credit bureau pull. We don't necessarily want to take the personally identifiable information into it when we're going through this decisionings, but we need to be able to throw that information against the lending institutions' buying policies and practices to determine whether there are any hurdles that may prevent the transaction from being approved and what those hurdles are. We want to cover them up front if we can. And then the second class is the hard numbers, and this is where it really gets tricky. We have to take all these elements, literally every parameter, policy, and factor that can influence a lease, a finance, or a balloon note program from all these different lending institutions, regardless of how complex the transaction is, need to be taken into consideration. Some of those elements are rates, residual values, security deposit policies, both standard, zero security deposit, multiple security deposits, high mileage penalties, low mileage residual value enhancements, maximum advance, maximum down payment, max rate markup, paid reserve, maximum residualized MSRP, everything in the world that you can imagine that comes into play from a lending institution perspective, we need to make sure that we get right. The next class is another convoluted one, and that's the municipality class of data, and that consists of all the laws, the rules, regulations, calculation methodologies, tax percentage rates, and registration fee calculations for every inch of the country. And the last one is the dealer class of data, and this is the most overlooked class in the space. Every dealer should be able to dictate the terms and conditions under which they're willing to transact, their selling price rules based on however they want to do them, year, make, model, trim, lot age, what lending institutions they have in their portfolio that are available for their customers, what fees they charge, how conservative or aggressive are they in their interpretation of some of the ambiguous tax laws that are across the country. And there's lots and lots of those elements that need to be taken into consideration. So we have one more polling question that I'm going to ask Farah to pop up. Oh, there it is. I guess I'll participate too. Cool. All right. So hopefully you guys have had an opportunity to answer the polling questions. I'll wait for a few seconds, right? So, and we're going to get to the results of those two polling questions in just a second. For decades, little has changed in the way dealers sell cars. Conversely, advances in technology have dramatically influenced consumer shopping behavior. Companies like Amazon and eBay have redefined how we buy things. They provide us literally with instant gratification, which in turn increases our expectations, kind of a catch-22. Amazon has become the standard by which all digital retailing efforts are measured, and I suspect everyone on this webinar has bought lots of things from Amazon. I know I certainly have. And the process is near perfection. You know, we can go on Amazon, we can select the items we want. We instantly know exactly how much they're going to cost. We can click purchase now. Our credit card gives a ding for the exact amount we're expecting, and if we're on Amazon Prime, the item shows up pretty much the next day. So a few minutes ago, the first polling question came up, which was, have you ever worked with a customer who was quoted a payment online that was far lower than the actual payment you could offer them once they entered your showroom? And Farah, I don't know if you can show me the results. If not, if you can just tell me what they were.
We didn't get a good response. Can we relaunch that poll really quickly?
Okay. All right. So, Farah, tell me when you want me to, or when you have some results, because I'm glad to wait. All right. Very good. So the results are, let's see, 45, 55, 61% of you have dealt with it, and a few of you haven't, which is very, very common, right? And your answers don't surprise us. This is one of the biggest complaints of consumers and dealers alike. In fact, it's kind of the driving force behind this whole webinar. If you can show me the results of the second poll as well, too, please, Farah. Okay, very good. So I got a confession to make. The second one was a little bit of a setup. We knew the answer. 95% of you said, no, I would continue shopping until I found a reputable seller. So thank you guys all for participating in that. But like I said, it was a bit of a setup, and as anticipated, almost every single one of you said you'd continue on looking for a reputable seller. Here's where it's ironic. According to the poll, many of you are forced to ask your customers to do something that you yourself just stated you would not do. You're asking your customers to get quoted something online that is different than what you're able to offer them in the store, and then you're asking them to continue to do business with you. And so that is the problem that we're trying to solve. Let's see here. We've all heard the phrase, every cloud has a silver lining, and I believe that to be true. We're currently under a massive COVID-19 cloud, and in no way do I wish to diminish the magnitude of this pandemic, but I do, however, see that there is an obvious silver lining. The current business climate is forcing a rapid adoption of digital retailing for our industry. As a result, nearly every competitor or every company in the industry is focusing on providing an Amazon buying experience. And the good news is that more and more well-funded technology companies are entering the space than ever before. So this is the proverbial silver lining. Now, the part of the presentation that may be uncomfortable for many of us is we all basically have a decision to make in this area, right? We can fail, we can survive, or we can thrive. And the choice is ours, and the choice is for each one of you too, right? Taking the position of this is how it's always been done, or my personal favorite, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I believe that's setting ourselves up for failure. Going into survival mode by cutting costs at every opportunity and riding the storm out, that's an option as well. Taking full advantage of the technologies available today and employing them in a strategic manner, we think is the recipe for success. And it's our intention to help everyone not just survive, but thrive. And in order to get there, we certainly have our work cut out for us. When I look at the landscape, right now there's kind of the calm before the storm, and we kind of look at this as creating a launch pad for a rocket, right? We've got this downtime or seemingly downtime that we can really focus on how are we going to really have a huge push of business once we get out from under this weirdness. We live in a community that's about an hour north of Los Angeles called Camarillo, and it's kind of a bedroom community. We're 2 hills past all the crazy people, if you will, and there's a lot of family-owned businesses and restaurants. One of our favorite ones is a place called Eggs and Things, and it's like home cooking breakfast stuff. Right now, the entire state of California, and I think a whole bunch of the states in the country are under a shelter-in-place order. So we can't really go out, and all the restaurants are shut down. You cannot go sit down at a table and have somebody wait on you and bring you, your meal. A lot of them are doing takeout only, but Eggs and Things looked at this as an opportunity, and they literally have a whole lot of people coming and going constantly getting takeout food, but they've gutted the restaurant. They know that there's no sit-down business right now, so it's not going to disrupt their sit-down business. So they're taking the opportunity to renovate the restaurant and all that stuff, which is really good. So we're kind of hoping that a lot of our technology partners and lenders, manufacturers, and dealers in this space will take that same type of approach. Now, so just as we were going through this a minute ago, I was talking about the silver lining, and for the record, I'm not a big Grateful Dead fan, but I think the song "Touch of Gray" is apropos here. One of the lyrics reads, "Every silver lining's got a touch of gray," and the touch of gray is a disconnect between some digital retailing efforts and the real world. At MarketScan, we have a saying, "Big data without science is just noise." And if we're going to thrive, we need to eliminate this touch of gray. In other words, we absolutely must combine science, technology, and data to give customers what they want. And no 2 customers are exactly alike. This means there are countless paths they may take when shopping for a new car. And we must offer every customer a consistent message at every point on their new car buying journey. So during the second part of the webinar, we're going to demonstrate how to ensure the terms and conditions under which you're willing to transact are respected, or create a relevant digital retailing presence, and provide consumers with penny certain payments online that are identical to the payments that will be presented to them in your dealership. In other words, we want to connect the dots and eliminate the touch of gray. Let's see here. At the end of the webinar, we're going to kind of go through some of the things that we're hoping to do to help our dealer customers out and even our non-customers out. You'll see that There's an email on the screen, covid-19@marketscan.com. Feel free to email us with any questions you've got after the seminar, and we want to work to kind of help you. We work with lots of different technology companies as well. Many of them have some offers that they want to provide you guys jointly, and we want to work with you guys in order to make sure you can take advantage of those. So for the next portion of the presentation, I'm not going to be doing much with a PowerPoint presentation. I'm just going to kind of be talking. And so don't be alarmed if the screen stays the same. I know I haven't done a great job keeping the PowerPoint presentation following the script, but hopefully you guys are okay with that. So earlier, we talked about the negative impacts of imperfect solutions on 4 sectors of the market. And those 4 sectors of the marketplace, coincidentally, are the 4 pillars of the automotive ecosystem's foundation. That's the manufacturer, the lender, the dealer, and the consumer. Now, I've changed the order of them from when I referred to them before, because I think it's important to analyze each of them as they appear in the marketplace. If we look at retailing, regardless of the widget, we're reminded that in order to gain market share, we must essentially buy the business. That's just the nature of retail. And it doesn't matter if we're selling cars, watches, cell phones for that matter. The secret is not to pay too much for the business that we want. And each sector of the marketplace has its own kind of currency, if you will, for buying the business they covet. For manufacturers, it's obviously the vehicle. But if we take that out of the equation for a moment and we assume that each year, make, model, and trim has a competitive year, make, model, and trim from a different manufacturer with similar costs, similar MSRP, similar features, safety ratings, all that stuff, then the currency for the manufacturer is their rebates and incentives. And for lenders, it's actually their payments. For the dealer, it's the overall transaction. And even though the consumer is not necessarily trying to buy market share, their currency is their budget. So if we look at the ecosystem kind of from a hypothetical utopian point of view, in the Zen environment, manufacturers would be able to create highly targeted incentives and rebates to position themselves exactly where they wish to be in the marketplace. In the same vein, lending institutions would be able to craft highly complex targeted offers that position themselves exactly where they want to be as well. And the dealers would be able to analyze all this information and offer transactions to consumers that they would find easy to accept. So over the years, many experts have studied how consumers shop and ultimately acquire cars. And recently, the common thread was most consumers are price shoppers and payment buyers, and we've been hearing that for years. And while most of that still holds true, more and more consumers are becoming payment shoppers and payment buyers than ever before, especially with the younger generation of car buyers. But at the end of the day, the consumer really doesn't care about all of the complexities that go into the transaction. What they care about is the results of those complexities, namely, how much am I going to pay up front, how much a month, and for how many months. So imagine this scenario. A manufacturer creates the perfect offering. It's got lots of complexities in it. A lending institution crafts the perfect offer that's even more complex than that of the manufacturer. A highly complex targeted offer gets the consumer's attention, and he says, yeah, that'll work, I'll take it. And the dealer is able to exactly replicate that transaction once the consumer shows up to take delivery of the vehicle. We call that the clicks to bricks transition. So the good news is, for the most part, this utopian environment can exist today. I want to show you how it works in just a second. I'm going to start by focusing on the lender sector of the marketplace. Let's see here. All right. So if a lending institution, I'll explain to you what you're looking at in just a second. If a lending institution were to enter the marketplace and they were $100 a month cheaper than everyone else, and they were a real lender, and they were $100 a month cheaper than everyone else for every vehicle, for every term, for every market, they most likely would earn the lion's share of the business. But they also most likely go out of business because they're paying too much, way too much for the market share. So if we look at it a little bit different, if we imagine you're a lender, I'm a lender, and we want to be $5 a month cheaper than our nearest competitor on every vehicle. And if we make it even more complex, we'll do it on lease versus finance. We want to focus on a 36-month lease with 12,000 miles a year in a specific marketplace. And we want to be $5 a month cheaper than everybody else. We need to figure out how to get there. And in order for us to actually get there, we must approach the problem from the consumer's point of view, meaning that it's not how we see the outside world that matters, it's how the outside world sees us. The consumer's going to shop and acquire their vehicle based on the payment and the structure, not necessarily on a hypothetical payment and structure. So not only must we take into consideration what each OEM offers, we must also take all the taxes and fees into consideration. Remember, how much up front, how much a month, how many months. So I'm going to show you an example that demonstrates that exact scenario. And I'm going to look at every vehicle for 2019 and 2020 new vehicles. Let's see, reports. 2019 and 2020 new vehicles, but I'm not going to use a hypothetical lending institution. I'm going to use the captive lender. I suspect there's some dealers and maybe some other guys on the phone that are saying, why is he taking us down this path? There's a method to the madness, as I think will be pretty clear in just a minute. But I want to take the approach that I'm the captive lending institution, and I want to position myself to where I'm $5 per month cheaper than the next best competitor. And obviously it's relative position. You know, some dealers are going to sell cars for more money, some dealers for less money. I might have a trade and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's still relative position. So I'm going to use 93012 as my zip code, which is where I'm sitting right now, Southern California. A 720 credit score. 5% of MSRP is customer cash, 12,000 miles a year. A lease. I'm basing on a selling price. I'm just going to sell the vehicle at invoice because I want to get relative position. I want to take every lending institution into consideration. There's hundreds of them that I want to calculate. And then I want to be $5 a month cheaper. If my payment's got to go down, I might want to take 30% out of the residual and 70% out of the rate. If my payment's got to go up to get there, I might take 75% out of the residual and 25% out of the rate and whatever. So when I do that, and I'm not going to run this right now because it takes a couple minutes, but I'll show you the results of it. I ran it this morning. When I do this, what I end up with is a report that shows this. So out of 2019 and 2020 vehicles, we calculated from every lending institution about 4,600 vehicles that had both a captive and a non-captive program. There's a few vehicles where only the captives have programs, and there's some older vehicles where there's not a captive program, but there's other programs. But there's 4,600 vehicles that we calculated. What's interesting to note is that out of the 4,600 vehicles, almost exactly half of them, the captive lending institution had the cheapest monthly payment, and the other half, the captive lending institution didn't. Some people say, why does that matter? I send everything to my captive. Well, if we send everything to our captive, these ones in the middle doesn't really matter, right? U.S. Bank is 2 cents a month cheaper than GM Financial on this particular vehicle. Ally Financial is 52 cents a month cheaper than Chrysler on this particular vehicle. Nobody cares about $1 or $2 or $3 a month. But what we do care about when we get down here is, let's look at this. Let's look at this Toyota Tacoma, right? This is not an expensive vehicle. This Toyota Tacoma is a $33,000 truck. Toyota Financial Services is $95.57 per month more expensive than Los Angeles Federal Credit Union. Almost $100 a month. More importantly, they're 53.79% higher. The payment's $273 versus $177. So in an environment where we're trying to figure out what's a scientifically perfect solution for any scenario, we need to take all of the tools that are at our disposal into consideration in order to do that. Now, we also, through this tool, we give Toyota Financial Services the ability to figure out, okay, if I want to match that payment, what do I do? And it tells us we can match that payment. We need to use a 00139 money factor and a 78% residual value, which means we need to drop our money factor to by 0.016, and we got to increase our residual value by 3%. we lose $2,600 in yield and we pick up $1,000 in residual value risk, so it costs us $3,600 to do that. This gives us the ability to position ourselves in the marketplace. Now, one of the things we talked about a few minutes ago, was how critical it is to take all the 5 classes of data into consideration in order to effectively quote payments online, in order to really do digital retailing properly. One of the things that we do is we provide every dealer in the country who would like to participate in this, a free service, the ability to dictate the terms and conditions under which they're willing to transact in a portal. And any technology company that wants to subscribe to the service can take it, can access the information that's in that portal to quote payments properly on a dealership's behalf. The ticker that's up on the screen right now shows the number of payments that we've quoted so far today. We've quoted just almost 314 million payments today. Our average, it looks like, is about 400 million a day, something like that. So I'm going to go through real quick this portal. Now you can think of this as Rusty West Motors. This is just my demo portal. There's lots and lots of dealerships that have their own access to the same portal. And it's just controlled with their account number and their login. And in my portal, I have, let's see, I've got a little over 1,000 vehicles in inventory. I've got 1,020 vehicles in inventory. I demo everything from Actors to Volvos, so I've got a hodgepodge of all kinds of stuff in here. And I don't update my inventory all that often, so some of them are aged, but they're in here. And then I also have the ability to dictate one of those terms and conditions, which is dictate my selling price. And I want to dictate the selling price of my vehicles based on year, make, model, trim, and lot age. But I want them to be accurate. And what I did for my examples, and these aren't necessarily realistic numbers, but they demo pretty well so you can get an idea how it works, is every 30 days I'm changing the price of my cars. So, or every 30 days of age, I change the price of my cars. So my vehicles that are less than 30 days old in inventory, I'm selling at MSRP. My 30 to 59 day units, I'm $500 off of MSRP. 60 to 89 days, I'm 1,000 off. 90 to 119 days, I'm at invoice. My 120 day plus units, I'm $1,000 below invoice. And then if I wanted to find specialty vehicles and charge over window sticker for them, I can just select them from a list and say, okay, I only get a few of these. I want to charge whatever I want. So maybe I do that with my Hellcats and my Demons, wide bodies, red eyes, and maybe a GT2 RS. If I also take into consideration, clicked the wrong button. I get to define which fees I charge. Now every market's a little bit different. California, they restrict us on how much we can charge for documentation fees. Other markets, they don't. But I've defined 2 fees for myself as Rusty West Motors, because I want to make sure that any payment that's quoted on my dealership's behalf is quoted my way, accurately represents how I want to be seen in the marketplace. So I have 2 fees. I've got a documentation fee and a test fee, and they apply both to lease and retail contracts for both new and used cars. On my leases, I want to capture these fees in the inception fees. So they're part of the upfronts, the drive-offs, whatever you want to call them. But they're also taxable, and I don't want the tax in the inception fees. I want the tax actually built into the cap cost. So if we remember, we've got $300 for the fees, and this will come up a little bit later on in the demo. I also want to make sure that I'm not quoting payments online from lending institutions that I don't have available in my portfolio, meaning that if there's a lender out there, maybe there's a small credit union out there that's really aggressive and I'm not signed up with them, and they're 50, 60 bucks a month cheaper than my best program. I don't want to quote a customer a payment that's 50 or $60 a month cheaper than what I can achieve, because I don't want to have that problem that's exactly the Amazon problem that was in the polling question and the second polling question that you guys participated in. So I want to be able to tell the portal which lending institutions I have available that I won't take into consideration when I quote payments, either in my store, on my website, or through a digital retailing aggregator of any description. And on the left side is all the different lending institutions that are out there that have published programs for lease and finance. And the right side is the lending institutions that I have signed up myself as Rusty West Motors. Now, typically, we only see 5 or 6 lenders over here, which is a captive plus 3 or 4 or 5 lenders. I have all the captive turned on plus 3 lending institutions. So don't don't let the fact there's a bunch of lenders over here bother you. There's typically only 5 or 6. Now, in the lease space across the country, there are 5 lending institutions that allow you to mark up the bank fee, acquisition fee, assignment fee, whatever you want to call it. It's interchangeable. And the maximum markup for those is listed here, and I have it turned on. Not every dealership does this, but it's additional profitability that they can build in. But we want to make sure that if you do this in your store, that's taken into consideration when your payments are quoted to your consumers online and on your website and in your dealership as well. A lot of dealerships will mark up the rate, interest rate, money factor, whatever, to make paid reserve. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that one too much. And we also have the ability to define equipment like spray and bed liners and what you charge for that and everything. So if that gets added on the fly, we know how to adjust your monthly payment. There's 2 other pieces that are really important, and they're the calculation settings, both global calculation settings and market-specific settings. One of the things we touched on in the beginning was how aggressive or conservative are you in interpreting the tax laws. Most of the country has very vague and ambiguous tax laws, and they can be interpreted a multitude of ways. We're not a tax advisory service. We don't profess to be one or even want to be one, but we do know that pretty much every dealership out there has tax guidance of some description. It could be their lawyer or whatnot, and they're going to interpret those tax laws however they're going to interpret them. So if you take a super conservative approach about how you interpret the tax laws versus a highly aggressive approach, the 2 approaches generate vastly different monthly payments. And those approaches typically are defined in your DMS, your CDK, your rentals, your dealer track, your Arcona, your dealer bill, whatever box you're using. And we want to be able to parallel the behavior of your DMS in order to make sure that the payments that are getting quoted online on your behalf match what you can generate when they come into the store. So we have global settings. We also have market-specific settings. I don't get too much in the weeds, but if we look at, say, New York, there's a bunch of goofy things that you can do in New York. Some dealers take advantage of them, some dealers don't. So at the end of the day, what it does is it puts us in a position where we can do some really interesting things from a digital retailing perspective. I'm trying to drag an app on the screen, but it does not let me do it. Let's close this and try again. Come on. Here we go. All right, so you guys should see a mirror of my iPhone. So I'm apologizing in advance if you guys see a text message from my kids asking for algebra homework there at home in class, and this is a live demo, so it's not canned. But if we take all of the things that we've defined from the lending institutions, the manufacturers, the municipalities, and you as a dealership, and we combine that with a particular scenario for a consumer, and this particular scenario answers a question: what can I drive, right? So there's kind of 2 consumers out there. There's a consumer that knows exactly what they want. You know, I've been dreaming about a Camaro convertible my whole life. You've got a red one on the showroom floor. I want it. Hook me up. And then there's the other guys that say, look, I got $1,500 up front. I drive 12,000 miles a year. I want a payment that's between $375 and $400 a month. I don't want to go less than 2 years. I don't want to go more than 5 years. I don't care whether I lease it or finance it. I don't care if it's new or used. I've got a 720 credit score. What do you have in my inventory out of those 1,020 vehicles that you've got in stock? What do you have that I can drive? So this will take all of those pieces of information into consideration, and it will tell me that out of the 1,020 vehicles we have, there are 221 vehicles that this customer can drive. Now, this technology that I'm showing you is powered by the information that's defined by the dealer in the portal, and also powered by all the information that's aggregated from the lending institution, the manufacturers, and the municipalities. So of the 221 that I can drive, they vary. I have these sorted by what we call PVI. PVI is Payment Value Index. It's basically an index that describes what's the best bang for the buck. The higher the PVI number, the better the deal. In this particular situation, for $383, an estimated payment of $383 a month, I can drive a almost $47,000 GMC Sierra 3500, so 91.84% or 91.84 PVI. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, let's go all the way down to the bottom. I can also drive for $379 a month, $3, $4 a month cheaper. I can drive a $13,655 Nissan Versa. So basically the exact same scenario for the customer. $1,500 up front, 12,000 miles a year. I can drive a $13,000 car, or I can drive a car that's got a 3.5 times bigger MSRP. Now, if I look and my customer's interested in a truck, but he doesn't want a white pickup truck because he says they're always dirty, maybe the next best choice for me is this Toyota Tacoma pickup truck, which is a $43,711 MSRP for 42 months. And I can look and I can see there are 3 options that might fit this customer's budget. You got $389, you got $392, and $399 a month, all of which are between $375 and $400. Maybe the best deal for me is the 42 month. So we have an estimated payment of $389 a month. Oh, I'm clicking on the screen. I got to touch my phone. Sorry. My actual payment, the calculated payment, is $389 a month also, so it came out the same. So let's just say this is John, J-O-H-N Consumer. John Consumer. I want to have an ecosystem or an environment where it doesn't matter what I'm quoting online as long as it's accurate. I need to make sure that that transaction follows my customer through every step of his journey. So if this technology is embedded in a widget on your website, which is very easy to do, I want to make sure that I can get this into the store and get it in the store in a manner that's identical to what what's going to happen when I get my customer in the finance office or when they go through F&I. There's a bunch of ways we can do that. We can use a webhook and push it to one of our API partners. If you're not using our desking process or any of the partners processes, we can email a PDF that has the entire structure of this transaction to a designee in the dealership as well. But I'm just going to push it into our desking tool called MDesking 360. Let's see. I gotta log in. Ooh, that's loud on my side. All right, so when I push this, someone in your dealership, if you're on our MDesking 360 platform, would get a pop-up from MDrive, which is this app that says, hey, you got a transaction that's come in. And when I click on it, my $389 payment that I quoted is $388.81. Now, this is an exact penny certain payment that takes everything into consideration. Now, a lot of the elements that are associated with this payment were comprised of the terms and conditions under which we dictated as a dealer. So if I look, I had $1,500 cash from my customer. They automatically qualified for $2,000 in other rebates, which we'll explore in a second. So we had $3,500 total dollars between cash and rebate, and we had $1,300 worth of inception fees, and so there's $2,184 left over. So that was used as a down payment and tax on a down payment. Now the tax percentage rate was 7.25%. That was calculated because we knew where the customer resided, 93012 zip code. We had a 63% residual value. Actually, this is a pretty cool example. Original MSRP on this vehicle is $43,711. This particular lending institution, which is U.S. Bank, who's had the best program, has a maximum residualized MSRP of $42,500. So we actually had to adjust our numbers down in order to accurately calculate their residual value. So 63% of 42.5 is 26,775. We had a 2 percentage point enhancement because we were driving 12,000 miles a year, which was $850. So our adjusted residual value was this. We didn't mark up the rate, but there was still a $200 flat fee reserve, which is defined in this particular program. There's also $21.75 tax on taxable dealer-defined fees. Now, when I set up the terms and conditions under which I was willing to transact, I defined $300 worth of fees. If you remember, there was a $100 documentation fee and a $200 test fee, and I said that the fees are to be collected in my inception fees, but they're taxable, and I want the tax in the cap. $21.75 is 7.25% of that $300. Those inception fees are comprised of a first payment of $388, a registration fee of $627, a $100 documentation fee, and a $200 test fee. So every technology that calculates payments based on the information that is in your portal, will take these into consideration on the fly, so your payments will obviously be calculated accurately. These registration fee of $627, welcome to Southern California, ladies and gentlemen, is comprised of all these goofy things here. If I go from my office to my house, it's a little bit different zip code. This changes by $7, and it literally is 9 miles away. So there's all kinds of complexities associated with that as well. Now, the next piece that I want to show you, which I think is really important from a digital retailing perspective, is as you are presenting your offers online, we want to not just be able to present them based on a budget. This particular scenario was based on budget. Actually, let me change gears real quick. It was based on the budget as opposed to I'm on a particular vehicle. This particular one, this $388 a month payment, was $113 a month cheaper than the best captive lender program. And there was 6 U.S. bank programs and 2 Ally Financial programs in the top 8, all of which were cheaper than Toyota. If I grab the wrong U.S. bank program, I might have the right lending institution, but the wrong structure of that lending institution, and still be $63 a month off, meaning I'm leaving money on the table. If I have a customer that says, look, I'm only going to be able to pay $400 a month, and I'm quoting only the captive lender, I need my customer to come up with $5,232, or I got to take a bath on this transaction. I got to lose money. Conversely, at $400 a month payment from the number 1 lender, I actually increase my gross profit by about $400. So this gives us the ability to analyze this based on budget. Now, we also want to have the ability to analyze it based on a particular vehicle. We want customers to be able to shop online, and it doesn't matter whether it's through an aggregator or whether it's through your dealership's website or even your dealer group's website. We want to be able to know, okay, what exactly are my monthly payments based on a particular scenario? So let me go to my inventory, and I'm going to grab, I was playing with this one earlier, so it's a pretty fun example, a Ram Rebel. Right? So I've got 4 Ram Rebels in my inventory. This one's been in my inventory 87 days, so I'm going to sell it for $1,000 below MSRP. So let me grab this. So I'm going to copy this VIN. So the next piece that I'm going to show you is not a product that we sell to anybody. It's literally just a user interface that we propped up to showcase one type of API call that our technology partners have access to. And it's designed to say, okay, let me take a vehicle that's in the dealership's inventory. First time I do it, it's got to wake the service up, so it takes a second. After that, it's about 20 milliseconds. But it's going to find the vehicle that's in that particular dealership's inventory, which is Rusty West Motors that knows the car. And all I want to do is I want to pass it a VIN and a scenario. And the scenario is that my dealership resides in 93012 zip code. My customer's in 93012 zip code. It's got a, well, I don't do 490. Let's do a 700 credit score, drives 12,000 miles a year. And I want to present multiple payment options for lease and finance. And I also want to present them with a cash purchase option. So my lease options are 0, 500, 1,000, and $1,500. This is total out of pocket for 24, 36, 39, and 42 months. And then my finance is $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000 for 48, 60, 66, 72, and a cash purchase option. Now, take into consideration, this is just propped up as a demo, so it's not supposed to be terribly pretty. I also might want to look and see, are there any rebates that my customer qualifies for, both conditional and automatic. And there are a bunch of rebates. These are all the rebates for the lease types of transactions, and these are the rebates for the retail types of transactions. And all of these columns represent a specific transaction type and a subset or a subsection of those transaction types. Is it a captive lender special APR program, a special APR combo program, a standalone program? All these different things all have different rebate amounts. And then there's a whole bunch of conditional rebate amounts that are available to us as well. And those conditional rebates are all listed here. Some of them, this case construction equipment consumer bonus cash allowance, I don't know what that is. Let's look and see. So this tells us this actually program has been around for a while, since January of last year, and it ends January of next year. And this is all of the requirements necessary in order to qualify for that, and also the stackability compatibility rules. And we keep track of all that for you. So I'm just going to assume that my customer just gets the standard rebates, they don't qualify for anything else. When I tell it to run a scan, what the system did was it went and it calculated every single payment for every term and cash combination for lease and finance that's available at Rusty West Motors through all the different lending institutions that we have, and it took everything into consideration. And it looks like this, which is the exact same information that I showed you a few minutes ago in our desking tool. And this information, again, can be pushed via PDF into a designee at the store. It can be pushed directly into our desking tool, or it can be passed along from one technology partner to the next via webhooks. That way, as your consumer makes their journey, every payment that's quoted on your behalf is exactly the same payments that'll be quoted in the dealership. And this has all of the same structures. There was a couple of things that are a little bit different with this one than with the Toyota one, which you'll notice there was an acquisition fee markup of $300. There was 5 lending institutions that allow us to mark up those bank fees, and we told the system we want the maximum markup for all 5 of them. So it picked it up here, and we actually picked that up as an additional profit margin part of our transaction. That gets taken in consideration on the fly as well. The next thing that I'd like to show, let me see if I can pop over to it. Here we go. Zoom meeting thing is blocking the top of my tabs on my browser, so I apologize. It's not just Rusty West motor cars that we're demoing, right? It's the ability to quote specific penny certain payments on any dealer's behalf that participates in the ecosystem, right? You can set up your terms and conditions, what lending institutions you're signed up with, and all that stuff, right? So one of the big users of our product, which is our MDive product and some of the other products that we've got, is a dealership called Hillside Honda, and they're in, I think, New York. They're in New Jersey, 11435 zip code in New Jersey. I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget. So if a digital retailing technology wishes to quote payments on their behalf, then we can pull a vehicle from inventory. Let's see here. And say we want an Accord, right? 2020 Honda Accord, right? So we can grab this VIN. I don't want the whole thing, let's do this. I can copy this VIN, and in the same demo, I can put this VIN in, and it's going to know that it's Hillside Honda in New York, 11435 for my dealer. I'm assuming my customer's in the same zip code. Same scenario, maybe I got a 720 credit score. See if there's any rebates. There's a $500 rebate that pretty much applies to everybody, and then there's some loyalty rebates that you get, but you don't get the loyalty rebate if you use the Zero Do It signing program. Right? So I'll apply. Now the payments that Hillside Honda wants you to quote on their behalf for this scenario are these 33 options. Here's my lease options, my finance options, our cash purchase option. And their setup is different as well. So their setup shows that we collect sales tax in the inception fees. That zip code is 8.875%. All the rest of the structure and how they do things is taken into consideration. Even our dealer incentive of $500 shows up as on our profit margin as well. So the goal is to empower every dealer in the ecosystem to have their payments represented accurately online. Right now we're in the middle of this pandemic, and everybody is trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we not just survive, but how do we thrive? And if we look and we think, all right, for most adults, there's several milestones in our life that are really feel-good moments. Obviously, you get married, that's a big one. When your children are born, that's a big one. You buy your first house, that's a really big one. Another one that's really big for most of us is when we buy a car. And if we're lucky enough, we bought the right car, and the right car, I define the right car as you get out of it and you're walking into your office, you get 20 feet away from it, and you turn around and you look at it and you smile. That means we got the right car. Those feel-good moments are things that every single one of us want. And we have so many people in the country right now that are cooped up in their houses who are just clamoring for a feel-good moment. They're going stir crazy. That we need to be able to give them that feel-good moment, but we got to do it properly. We got to be able to quote them payments that are exactly what they're going to get. We got to be able to have it almost a completely touchless experience where we can communicate with them electronically and run through the process of quoting payments online, but have that Amazon type experience where we don't run into a situation where we're quoting things online and when they actually go to take delivery of the vehicle, the transaction isn't correct. So that, we believe, is one of the ways to help us get from point A to point B through this pandemic. And I think we've got time for a few questions. So Farah, I guess with that, I'd like to turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you, Rusty. We are now in the Q&A portion of the webinar. Please submit your questions and Rusty will be happy to answer them. Question 1, on your website, I read that your system and solutions are able to quote an identical price both online and in store. Is that the price which will be the transactional price on our paperwork the customer signs with our F&I?
It is exactly the price, assuming the scenario doesn't change. And the way we accomplish that is by taking all the dealer's terms and conditions into consideration ahead of time. So if the scenario changes, if all of a sudden a trade is introduced, or maybe they say, look, I don't really do a 12,000 mile a year lease, I do 15 or 17.5, then the payments will change, but they'll change accordingly, but they'll change properly.
The next question, in your view, what are some of the best online selling practices retailers should try to embrace in a time of disruption?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's a lot. So first one, I'd say transparency and consistency. You know, we're all looking for like we say, that Amazon buying experience. Customers are demanding it, so we think that being able to show them everything and be very consistent with what they see online versus what they see through an aggregator versus what they see at your dealership's website versus what they see in the store is very important. Visuals are important. You can probably tell by my demo that I'm not great at, or by our demo app that I'm not great at making really pretty visuals, but dealers like to be able to have a see, feel, and touch type experience online, and there's some great tools out there for it. They also, I think, there's a term out there that's kind of start-stop functionality, and I look at how I shop for things, and more importantly, I kind of look and see how my kids do, because my kids aren't in the automotive business like I've been my whole life. But they want to be able to kind of go through a process and say, all right, you know what, I'm ADD, ooh, look a bunny, go jump over here and do something, and then come back a little bit later on, and pick up where they left off. And I think that that's missing in a lot of their buying experiences. So I think that's important. Let's see. I don't know, there's two or three more that if you guys don't mind, I'll just rattle off. Kind of a single point of contact. I think dealers like to find someone who they establish a rapport and a relationship with, and not dealerships, consumers, right? And if the representative from the consumer does a good job, or the representative from the dealership does a good job establishing a level of trust with the consumer, then they want to work with that person through most of their journey. That's a pretty big one. And then one of the things that we hear, it used to be that the number one complaint on CSI scores was the process took too long. Number one complaint now we see is I was quoted something online that was different than what I saw when I get to the store, but the process still takes too long. So I think anything we can do to speed up the process will help. And then the biggest part, which is what we've been focusing on, is consistency in your pricing. Every step of the journey, they need to be quoted the exact same payment, assuming the scenario stays the same. So if I had to list them, those are the 6 I would list.
Okay. We have a website and online present with our inventory shown, but we're not quoting payments online. We're prompting shoppers to call us. What's your recommendation to be able to add transactional pricing to that inventory?
That's another really good question. and one that we actually hear fairly regularly. There's a thought process that I don't want to quote payments online, which we think is kind of starting to go away because it's the consumers are driving the demand to be able to see, okay, what's this thing cost? So there's a lot of technology companies out there that have widgets that will embed into your website. We power some of them. Some of them are powered by other companies, and there are actually some pretty good ones that are out there as well. Regardless of who you choose, one of the crucial elements in your decision needs to be, are they going to respect the terms and conditions under which I'm willing to transact? It's one thing when an aggregator quotes a payment online and then the consumer comes into the store and the payment's wrong. But it's another thing if you're quoting payments on your website and they're wrong, and the consumer comes and you're like, hey, you guys said I could get it for this much on your own website. No, why are you doing this to me? It really destroys any trust that you build up. So find an aggregator. I'm sorry, not find an aggregator, but find a technology company that has a plug-in widget that you can install on your website that respects the terms and conditions under which you want to transact, and I think you'll be in business.
That's all for today. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and thank you to Rusty and MarketScan for the great content. To view this webinar on demand and future Digital Dealer webinars, please visit digitaldealer.com/webinars. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Farah.